What are the questions that nobody asked before retirement, but they should ask of AI? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods, talking about how you can use AI to help yourself one small step at a time. I want to ask yourself something. You actually stop and think about it. What are you going to do on your first Tuesday of retirement? Monday, you sleep in, kind of, but the next Tuesday, and it's just a regular day, nothing special Tuesday, where now you have nowhere you need to be, no meeting on the calendar, no deadline, no colleagues stopping by your desk. What does that day look like? And most people can't answer that. I am one of them. I'm about 7 years out from retirement, and I've done the numbers work, which we talked about in previous episodes. You can check that out. The numbers in two of the scenarios will turn out okay. But I started thinking, the more I started discussing this over with AI, that the number part is easy to figure out. The hard parts are the questions that is everything else. The questions that nobody talks about. There's a whole industry built around retirement, for financial advisors and calculators and software and podcasts and books, all aimed at the money question. But the money question, and it matters a lot. I'm not dismissing it. But I started noticing that not a lot of people talk about the other questions, the ones that don't fit into a spreadsheet, the ones that are actually, I think, keeping some people up at night when the numbers look okay. But I think where they're actually going to struggle when they retire. Where do I want to live? What do I do with my days when I'm not somebody's employee? How do I fill my days when I'm not on vacation or doing something, but just normal, actual day-to-day life? What happens to my friendships when our spouses and our friends all retire and our relationships are going to change? My friend's husband is going to be home from work instead of at work all the time. And so, we always tended to hang out on the nights that he works so that, they get to spend time together and I get to spend time with my friend. But there's questions that we all have. And what's their relationship going to look like when her husband retires? And there's a lot of other small questions. And this one sounds really small. It's not really small. Can I get a dog? That could be a 10 to 15 year commitment. What changes, will I go through in that time period? And how will a dog fit into those changes? I'm not even just talking about physical health, but it's another significant retirement question I had in my brain. And so I started bringing these questions to AI, and not because I expected it to answer me or hand me an answer, because none of these questions I asked it have clean answers. But what I needed somewhere was to think out loud, to talk about this, to bounce ideas off of somebody else. I could talk to this, and I have with my friends, but there's only so many things that you can only talk about your retirement for so long with your friends before you have to talk about something else because, it's just not that thing. And so I'll tell you some of the things that were big in my question. So I'm someone who lives in a small city. I don't like cities very much. It's a city that has amenities that would make life in older age nicer, like a good hospital. It has good transportation on there. And so on paper, it could make sense to stay there. Also, I want to live in the North Woods. I love the North Woods and I want to go there every chance I get. But that is a place, my friends are here. I've never been a person who had strong ties to my family. I didn't have my own people, and now I do have my own people, and they all want to live here, and I want to live somewhere else. And it's a difficult decision for me. Where I want to live, the pace changes. The breathing is different when you're in the North Woods. I feel myself washing into nature, and I feel like myself up there. And it's really hard to explain, I guess, if, you haven't experienced it, but I suspect a lot of us feel that there is one place or another that is our home. And so I took that to AI. And in a sense, it's not a real estate question. It's a life question. Something like, I'm 7 years from retirement, and I feel a pull from staying here where my people are, where my best friend is. We have laughs every time we get together. We go bird watching. We have fun together. She is as close to me as family. And then something else that pulls me away, this place that I call my hometown. My heart is there. And it's a place that feeds me, essentially. Living in a city, I hear traffic right now, even as I'm recording this. It's hard for me. I don't like traffic. I don't like seeing buildings all the time. I like seeing nature, nothing but nature all the time. And so I asked the question that I, found it really hard to ask anybody else. Of course, my friend wants me to stay here. Of course, I want to stay here to be with my friends. Of course, I want to go into the North Woods where the nature, the pace, the people, the absence of things is something I love. And what happens if you move there full time and leave some people you love behind? What happens if you can't feel like your current home is a refuge? What actually do you give up in those things versus the other thing? And how do we debate that? It oh gosh, it landed really hard for me because there's so many things out there that I miss in either situation. And if I moved up north, I would miss my friend deeply, and it would be life destructing to me. But if I don't live up there, I'd be sad because I love it up there. And so AI helped me start to separate out those two things. And it never told me what to do, but it actually started to help me strain that out. The harder thing to talk about is that most people are quietly asking themselves in retirement, and they're probably not saying it out loud. I have this career. I've had this career. I've been working in the tech industry for the last 30 years as a trainer, as a software expert, and I worked for Microsoft as a support agent and then eventually a technical lead. I've worked in healthcare now, like I said, for 30 years, and I'm good at it. It gives me structure too. It gives me purpose, and it, gives me a schedule. I get up at this time, I get dressed, I engage with the world in this particular way. And in about 7 years, all that goes away. That version of me that existed in this professional role now has an expiration date to it. And so I asked AI about this in a way that I may not have asked another person. And because honestly, at times I feel vulnerable. Same thing with the last question. You might not say these questions like, hey, my best friend, I would love to leave you, but you want to stay here and I want to live in the North Woods. You can't say that to a person. And so this gave you a chance to sort of weed this out with AI, who is an honest broker, I think, in this entire debate. And so when I worried about retirement and how it's going to change me or change the way my life is, I've been doing this for a long time. What am I? I know what I am, so I don't want to say it like this. I'm going to explain it here in a minute. Without the job, when you take the job out. And the parts of it, I know who I am. I'm an only child. I have a brother, but he came along very late, but I grew up as an only child. I know how to entertain myself all the time. I have 1,000,001 projects, including knitting, including reading all these books in this room, including working on my house and going camping and going up north and doing all these things that I have as my hobbies. I know what I'm going to do with my time. But the question is that I have a very structured, because I have ADHD, and I spent the good probably first 20, 30 years of my life all over the place. I can't read my own handwriting. And when the computer age came along, I started using to-do apps, scheduling apps, calendar apps, and I won't have to do that anymore because I won't have those kinds of tasks in front of me anymore. The other interesting thing is I just got done with vacation. I took 3 weeks of vacation just last week, and I was laughing with my friend because I said, I'm going to struggle in retirement. I don't even know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what time it is anymore. There's things that I need to do at specific times, like church is on Sunday. I may have a doctor's appointment. I might have an appointment to take my tires and have them get rotated. Right now, being on vacation, I have zero idea what the date is, what the day of the week is. I am completely lost. And so some of the apps that I use to track my tasks and those things, don't necessarily say, "Hey, good morning, Jill. Today is Saturday. You are on at the last day of May." It just doesn't tell you those kinds of things. And like you can look at them and look at a calendar and see what day it is and all those things. But I just realized that there are just ways that I track time no longer going to exist. And so, in a sense, when I talk to AI and I like to bounce some things off ChatGPT, some things off of Grok, some things off of Claude, just to see what kind of different answers I get out of it, it didn't minimize my question and say, "Oh, don't worry, they're there. You'll be fine. You'll be busy." Instead, it said something closer to a more realistic scenario, that it's worth taking under serious condition now or consideration now instead of waiting for the day that it actually arrives. It asked me the parts of my work that I wanted to carry forward in some form. Do I want to get up at a certain time every day so that I have a regular schedule? Or do I just want to sleep without an alarm and just sleep in every day? What parts am I ready to let go of? Through the structure, I guess I learned through the working world, I now am productive. I now get things done. I now come out with these podcasts on a regular schedule. I pay my bills. I do my yard work on time. That was something I always struggled with. But these work tools helped me keep a fundamental structure to my life. Am I ready to give them all up? There's another thing that I think about. I think about when I was talking about this, I'm going to go birding. I have all these podcasts. I come out with 7 episodes of podcasts a week. I come up with, I'd like to volunteer. I'm doing cooking experience now. I like to be in the woods. I want to start seeing some things. There's some places I want to travel. There's a version of me that exists outside of a job, and I haven't spent any time with her yet. I don't know who she is. And so AI basically started helping me with an introduction to who that person's going to be. So it sounds, I think in the end too, that when you think about what am I going to do? How am I going to fill my time? It sounds like a good problem to have. I'm going to have all this time, all this freedom. And in theory, unstructured time without intention would lead me to a collapse into nothing. I could see myself returning to the old Jill who buys a video game and just gets lost into a video game week after week. Or just reading a book week after week, getting nothing done. I have been there before. I have seen this happen to me before. So then retirement starts to, it starts off feeling like a very long weekend, and then it just starts getting smaller instead of bigger because you're not accomplishing anything anymore. It could if you don't. You could just end up just playing video games all the time, and your life has been reduced to nothing but video games. That was my 20s. I mean, I worked, but you know what I mean? Like my life wasn't productive. I didn't get things done. I didn't get any of my goals done. I didn't exercise. And now I do. So I don't want my life to get smaller. I think AI helped me think about genuinely what a good day on retirement looks like for me. Not just a best case, vacation, a life of vacation or something like that, but a sustainable, ordinary day. What kind of day is it that I want to live in? And it walked me through almost like designing an exercise program. When do I naturally wake up? What do I need in the morning to feel like the day has started right? What do I do best on my most creative, most productive days? What do I need to do to have people around me? What do I do when I'm alone? What does a day feel like when I go to bed thinking, man, that was a really good day? And I started sketching some of those things out with AI. A day would be great if it had birding in it, probably early. A day that has some creative work in it, potentially writing or recording my podcast. That would be a good day too. Having connection with people. I'm a more social person than I sometimes care to admit, but I do have a close group of friends. That would be great in it. Maybe going out and doing something that would be fun outdoors. I would love to do those kinds of things. So instead of a schedule, what instead I got was a shape. And then having a shape is different than having a schedule where you're this time, this time, this time. Instead, I started getting the idea of what a good day in retirement would look like. Then I gave it the question. I told you I'd come back to this. I love dogs. I have always loved dogs, and I had dogs in the past, and I want a dog again. But I've been holding it off because I used to travel for work and it became very difficult, and because of work schedule. And now I'm thinking, oh, a dog could be very possible for me in my retirement because I would have time to walk the dog. I wouldn't have to leave the dog when I didn't want to leave the dog. All the reasons that having a dog is complicated, those reasons in retirement would go away. Some new ones would appear also. So I started asking AI this question about retirement planning. Do I want a dog? Dogs are great. Like I said, love dogs, but they need to be walked. They can't just sit in the house for a day or 3 days on their own without having someone checking in on them. They have to go outside to go to the bathroom, those kinds of things, or they get stir crazy too. I've had cats. I like cats as well. I had 2 of the best cats in the world. They were like dogs. They would go play fetch. They would come when you called them. I had the best cats in the world. So I also wouldn't mind having cats. How do I sort out, do I want a dog or do I want a cat? I won't bore you with the long details of it, but essentially, like I said, I love dogs. They're my favoriteest thing. But like I said, a dog needs to go outside. If I decide to go bird watching at the crack of dawn, not every bird watching place allows dogs, and I can't let the dog sit in the car alone while I'm out on a hike in a place where a dog can't be. How do I hire a dog watcher or dog walker on a random day where I go bird watching? Now, my randomness of my day has gone away because I just can't go bird watching or camping at the drop of a hat. I have to think about what am I going to do about the dog. Cats, on the other side, have a little bit more autonomy. They can be in the house up to 2 days without any sort of attention at all, and they'll be fine. They'll feed themselves. They'll have water. Maybe have a neighbor look on them in on them and give them a little bit extra water, but they don't need the maintenance with it. So maybe a cat would be better. But what realistically can I get? What would happen if my health changed and I couldn't go for a walk with the dog anymore? I mentioned I watched a woman during the pandemic. She had a very frisky dog, and she got older. And all of a sudden, the dog nearly pulled her out in the street. She fell and injured herself. And I had, someone pulled over, took her to the hospital. I had someone take the dog home. But essentially, now you have a dog and you can't physically walk it anymore. Or if you have to go to a retirement home because of your health, now what do you do with the dog? It has a whole level of complications. Me going off into the North Woods and going camping, sometimes it makes sense to bring the dog and sometimes it doesn't. I don't have all those answers yet, but essentially AI went through each of the situations and helped me think of creative ways that I could have a dog if I wanted to in retirement. Or potentially what would be beneficial about having a cat instead that didn't need that same kind of attention. So what is actually AI good at here in this kind of conversation? Because AI works with these conversations particularly well, but sometimes it's not really obvious why it's so good at it. The questions are questions that don't have a right answer. A financial advisor can say, yes, your numbers are going to be okay, right? A doctor can tell you, yes, your health is okay or your health is not okay. But no one can tell you, should you live here or should you live in the North Woods? Should you get a dog or should you get a cat? Or tell you how you can rebuild your productivity tracking after you retired and you no longer need those drastic tools anymore. By the way, I did find an app that every morning tells me, hi, Jill, today is Sunday, May 30th. These are your news items and this is what your schedule looks like. So I did find an app. It's called Structured, but it is basically exactly what I was looking for. I don't need Todoist and I don't need Fantastical or even Outlook anymore. That app will give me everything I need. But what AI can give you here is something to just think out loud without being weird or without anyone thinking you're weird. It can help you sort through some uncertain questions that you have that maybe would make another person feel uncomfortable. it can help you circle back to the same questions in slightly different scenarios. Well, what if I got a dog, but I ended up moving into a cabin? What if I got a cat and I ended up staying here? And you can say, I don't know, at the very beginning of it and actually mean it. And it will help you sort out those questions, find a better way towards a more clear answer. It will ask you questions that you wouldn't even think of asking yourself. Again, if it's training off the whole world of knowledge out there, it sees all the articles of people who had good retirements, bad retirements. How do you track time? How do you do this? And so it will ask you questions, like I said, you wouldn't even think about asking yourself. It holds the whole picture. Everything you've just told it, reflects it back to you, and then doesn't rush you to a conclusion. And that actually is one of the most important things that AI can do. So a good place to start, if this is resonating with you, and this is an approach that, maybe it's not retirement for you. Maybe for you, it's, middle age, or a decision on whether you're getting married or having kids, or what career you want to take, or where you want to live. Whatever it is that you're looking for, if any of this idea is resonating with you, where you have sort of an open-ended question where no answer is right or wrong in it, this is where it can actually help you. And so here's how I would suggest starting it, is first open up the conversation and tell the truth, not a polished version of it, the actual thing. Something like, I'm getting close to retirement and I thought I would feel more ready than I do. I'm not sure about these things. It makes me nervous that I might return to the Jill who just plays video games all the time if I don't have some kind of a structured life. But partially, I don't want to have a structured life. I want to sleep in to whatever time I want to do. I want to do every day what I darn well feel like doing. But then I know that I could go back to some very bad habits that I broke decades ago. Say that and tell it what's true. Let it ask you questions. The questions are more useful at times than the answers themselves. And this is coming back to the whole thing from the last episode that I kept coming back to. Ask for something that you can hold on to, a summary of what you figured out, a list of questions you still haven't figured out the answer to, something that you can come back and refer to later. Retirement is big. It's not the end, just the end of something. It's the beginning of a new stretch of your life that no one has mapped out for you. And you can read books. This is where my friend and I were talking about AI. There are books, there are articles, there are YouTube videos about it where it'll say, oh, this and that about retirement or that thing. But this is actually a plan and a discussion built around you, your life. Not everyone wants a dog or a cat. Not everyone wants to go camping in the North Woods. Not everyone has your type of personality involved in it. And so knowing that you can ask these open-ended questions, have it ask you good questions, help you map something out, can be a bit terrifying, but honestly, for me, it felt like freedom because I started exposing all sorts of questions I never thought about in retirement. I can even ask it, what are some of the biggest things that catch people by surprise when they retire? And how can I start dealing with them? You can even give it open-ended questions like that. You don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out, but you can start thinking about it, whatever your questions are. And you don't have to think about it alone. You don't have to think about it in any specific kind of order. You don't have to use one specific kind of resource. And if you found a book about it, it's not going to be about you. This is going to be about you. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you being out there. Jill from the North Woods. And I hope that that's helping you understand some things that you can do with AI. Figure this out alongside of you. You can reach me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. You can find all my shows at jillfromthenorthwoods.com. And I'd love to hear from you. What kinds of questions have you been living with for years that you've been trying to figure out? Or is there something that you're wondering if AI can help you that you haven't heard me talk about yet? Thanks so much and have a great day.